This is Pod Populi.
Podcast for the people.
Hello and welcome again to Crystal Clear Moments, where your moments, your pivots, the things that matter to you become crystallized in your life. Today, I have here my friend, my mentor. I mean, this lady, I tell you, I clean up when I'm around her because I know I need to bring the best of Crystal when I'm around this particular person. I just love her so much. I think she knows how much I love her.
And it's reciprocal.
Yes, and if you live closer to me, I'd probably stalk you and come over all the time. But I just adore her so much. And when I read her bio, and then when I give you a little story about my personal connection with her, and we dive into the purpose of her being here today on Crystal Clear Moments, then you'll know why. And then at the very end of this, no, she can't be your mentor either. She's mine. I'm selfish. I don't like to share. but let me read the bio because it's important that you guys get a background of this dynamic woman. You know, people hear this word boss all the time. This person's a boss, but I think we overuse it. We need to save it for a real boss. And this definitely here, Dr. Dawson is a boss. Let me give you a background. With more than 40 years of education experience, starting in the classroom, then going to administrative and high school, and then back to the kiddos, pre-K to 8th, to the academies of 4 universities. I'm talking every level of educated, of our school system she's been part of, this scholar. And now she leads a team of working homes of families. Dr. Dawson has seen the effects of trauma in our children and family. She's watched this unnamed demon manipulate and violate the lives of countless individuals. But once it was identified and named, her mission has become one of naming it and getting rid of it. With the background that she is known as the traumaeducator.com. I love that. That is so chic. Look at you, you're hip. The traumaeducator.com.
Thank you.
Dr. Carlin Dawson, educator, education PhD, is an international trauma educator dedicated to enhance the educational environments through speaking engagements and professional development within a trauma-informed and trauma-safe framework. I love that. That not only are you educating, you're providing a safe space and a framework to have this conversation. Because folks, this can feel heavy for some people.
Yes, it can.
And I mean, I know I'm sounding lighthearted because I just love her so much, but this conversation is a must. I think it's a conversation not only for people of African descent, I think all descents, because I think everyone has an African descent in them. Check your DNA. You're part of the family. But I think trauma is universal.
Yeah.
And it's hit every continent because
Absolutely.
we're on every continent.
Absolutely.
So if we're showing up, the trauma is there. So I love how you have attacked this Black trauma, what happens to us. So this is Dr. Dawson's book, and it's called Black Trauma, and then of course, What Happens to Us. So tell me, Dr. Dawson, what made you want to walk down this kind of a dark alley, I would say initially, talking about trauma? What this feels like that.
Well, first I want to say thank you very much for having me here, Crystal. It is just an absolute delight to be with you. I haven't seen you in a little while, but I'm telling you, with people that you have a connection to, wherever you left off, when you see them again, you pick right up again.
Absolutely.
So there's no need to go back and try to rediscover anything because we are who we are together. And I just appreciate you.
Thank you.
And love you.
Thank you. I love you too. Yes.
Equally.
So I know I asked you about Black trauma, but I want to say this because I think it's important when we talk to people, and when I have guests on Crystal Clear Moments, I just don't randomly have them. I have people that I really believe have moments to share that the world can really glean from.
Yes.
But I want to share how you showed up for me. Okay. So my personal story, because I know the principles of how you showed up for me, I know are the principles and values of your life, and I'm sure they show up in the Black trauma. So we met at church. We went to the same church, and right away I knew I wanted to be around you. I just knew that, and I've always been a very intuitive person. I've always trusted it, so I didn't fight it. I just trusted I need to be around you. And you were the superintendent of our church school. So you guys need to understand, you heard her, you guys heard the resume. She ran church school like a school, like a general superintendent should run it, and which meant we had regular meetings that we had to attend.
Absolutely.
That started on time.
Yes.
And you just didn't walk in late or you got the eye. You just was on time. How about early? Because so that when 7 o'clock hit, we were talking. Secondly, we had to prepare our Sunday school lessons.
Absolutely.
And we had, and small children, preschool up to adults.
Yes,
and every teacher had to prepare a lesson plan. And remember, we had to actually do the lesson and get feedback.
Absolutely.
And that happened every week.
Every week.
Every week. And that was of excellence. You, just because it was a church setting, in some spaces nonprofit, some spaces not your real job, people don't show up. Excellent, right?
Exactly.
They'll save that for the corporation.
Exactly.
But you really show that excellence needs to show up in all that we do.
All that you do.
And all that you do. And I really appreciate you for that. You modeled that for me. And you got me tight in my presentation skills. And you really helped me develop those skills, which I believe really helped me launch and be the person who I am today. So thank you for that.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
But that was really important for me because I figured that if you were called to be a teacher, because we had to go through I took you through a 6-week lesson program on that. If you were called to be a Sunday school teacher, then you were called to a higher level. And so with that in mind, it was my expectation that if you're called to do something for God, you go present your very best. You cannot walk in shucking and jiving, thinking that, I'll just look at my lesson and I can skate by. Because I want to know, because I done read it. I read it, I was prepared, and I knew the lesson. And I held myself accountable for that. And if I didn't do it, you wouldn't do it. So, and I always tell people, I am not going to do less than I ask you to do.
You did it. And
I wanted to see. And then on Sundays, I came around to y'all's class.
I was going to say that. You inspected what you expected. Yes, you did.
I would walk to your classrooms and see.
Yes, you did.
Just sometimes y'all saw me and sometimes you didn't. But I would come and I would listen. I would be there just to see and hear. What you talked about, you are actually implementing. Because I found out that some people, they would say some things and then start talking something different.
Right.
And so we had to make sure. And that's how, and I learned that as a elementary school, high school and elementary school principal when I was in the school district, in an elementary school district, that in order to ensure what needed to be presented, you had to inspect it regularly. And my teachers knew that I was going to inspect what was going on. I would come around. Before the era of accountability, I was holding my teachers accountable and walking into their classrooms back in the 90s, holding them and walking in and seeing what they were doing and making sure that they were, I didn't know the words then, but that they were really being trauma responsive in how they were working with the children. Because I got in a lot of trouble as a principal because people are saying I was coddling Black kids. When I wasn't coddling them, I was helping them walk through their trauma. I didn't know it at the time, but I knew that in order to address, in order for them to learn, they had to release what they had gone through. And if they couldn't release it, they couldn't think. Because you can't think with a mind that's focused on trauma, high levels of stress. You can't do that.
So when was your crystal clear moment?
And I love that crystal clear moment.
Thank you. God gave me that. I'm just working. He's like, work with the tools I gave you, right? So he's working with that. But what crystal clear moment was revealed to you when you knew that there was something uniquely different about our kids. And again, like you said, you didn't have a name for it.
Yes.
But it showed up for you.
It showed, well, it was a crystal clear moment when I was invited to attend the Adverse Childhood Experiences training. There's a woman, her name is Marcia Stanton. At that time, she worked for PCH, Phoenix Children's Hospital. And so she, trained me and my organization on adverse childhood experiences. Just a wonderful woman, okay? And so when I was going through the training, Crystal, I started crying. Because now those adverse childhood conditions, things that people go through, adversity that kids go through from in utero to 17, that actually negatively impacts their life and changes the trajectory of their life because the brain gets rewired through these adverse experiences. And that right there, the name adverse childhood experiences was something I had never heard before. And it when they talked about what they were and how it came about, my mind quickly reflected back to a memory, said, oh my gosh, that's what my students were going through. And because of that, they were acting out what they experienced, but they couldn't articulate it.
So explain, like, specifically, how were they acting out?
Oh, when you don't have words to speak and words to explain what's going on, what do you want to do? People want to hit, or they won't talk at all. So I found that there were a lot of students who kids could just look at them. Just look at them.
They want to punch them.
And they would punch them. They would punch them.
Right.
If someone accidentally fell on someone or stepped on someone's foot, those were fighting words, fighting actions. And they would actually fight for the death because of something like that. So simple. When normally you would say, oh, excuse me. But no. So it was those kinds of things that was happening that I saw in school. But get this, when I go to church, and I was back in Illinois at the time, when we would go to church, those same kids, when something like that happened, they wouldn't respond the same way.
So God, this is so interesting to me. So I want to talk about that second part, but I want to go back to just the trauma behavior was displayed. So it was a behavior that was identified. Fighting, all those types of things.
Oh, it could be fighting. It could be depression.
Right.
It could be, just this aggressiveness, anything along those lines.
So teachers or guardians or parents were probably treating these kids based on their behavior.
Exactly.
Right. So they were labeled and maybe put in groups.
Absolutely.
And treated that way.
Treated
so
because of the behavior.
Because of the behavior. And how early this is. This is going on what? Kindergarten, preschool?
As a matter of fact, at that time, it wasn't in my school, but there was a 3-year-old child who was in pre-K who had gotten expelled from school because he kissed a girl, 3 years old. They love each other. What do toddlers do?
Yeah. And he probably saw that at home.
That's right.
Mommy and daddy kissed.
But he ran as kids do. Yes. He ran, the little kids, and they kissed each other. But he was expelled from school because they said it was sexual harassment. Okay, so that's not trauma on him. That was implicit biases on the educator.
Yes,
so let me back up on that one.
Yeah.
But that's what that was. But what happens to him now is that because of that, labeling on him, now his feelings can become traumatized. So that now how he comes to people, it can mute that.
Ooh, that's so good.
And then it causes him not to be able to express who he is.
Yes, even share, to
to love the way he needs to love. Because now it's like, oh, I'll get in trouble for that. I can't do that.
Wow. So you go to this training and you get your crystal clear moment.
I get my crystal clear
and it's
moment.
so powerful. It brings you to tears.
It brings me to tears.
And so with that, what did you do?
Well, with that, I was like, okay, I've got to know more about this. And so I just started talking and started working, and they end up the Arizona ACEs Consortium, it was called at that time, came together, and it was coming together. And so I was one of the individuals they selected to help develop the actual training for everybody else to get.
Educators.
Anybody to get.
Okay.
So I'm one of the original, I think it was 6 of us.
So just so we get some time, what year was this? So we get some timelines. Because I think we're hearing trauma now, but I don't think a lot of folks realize, 10 years ago, people weren't saying trauma. I mean,
No.
we felt it, we knew it existed, but like you said, it wasn't a name placed
I
on
want to
it.
think it was like 2010.
Okay.
Because
okay.
I was even late coming to the table.
Okay.
Because our community had not heard about this.
Wow.
I was working in
And
the
we
area
need
with
it.
all these women, and they were talking about us, and there was no one like us at the table. No one.
No
And so,
representation.
no representation.
What
at
is
the
it? How are you
table.
going to have a meeting
And-
about me
right,
without me?
Without me. But that was it.
Right.
And so, and when I found out that they had been talking about this 10 years earlier, 10 years earlier,
Right.
and here I am just coming to the table. So it's somewhere around 2010.
Okay.
So here, it was just like, how dare you? How dare you? Well, anyway, they started to include me into all these things now after that. And then one thing led to another. After that, then I met the Arizona Human Services. I met, the woman's name was Bonnie Didoff. And she came to an ASCAR, Arizona Center for African American Resources meeting, or our nonprofit entity, came to a meeting. And she was talking about the neurosequential model that Dr. Bruce Perry. Now, Dr. Bruce Perry is an international phenom. That man is, he's my guy when it comes to trauma.
Is he out of Connecticut?
I don't think so. I have to check. I don't
Okay.
think
I'm maybe thinking of someone else.
But anyway, Dr. Perry and Oprah Winfrey wrote a book on what happens to you. What happened to you.
I remember that,
Okay?
yes.
They wrote that book, okay. So anyway, he is the one, she came and talked to us and said, we're going to be doing this training on the neurosequential model on how trauma enters the brain and what happens to us with that. And so I was like, okay, I thought ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, was the end-all, be-all. Well, when I went to that first lesson and first discussion with Dr. Perry on the neurosequential model, the brain processes and how the brain impacts the body, this was ACEs on steroids.
Wow.
And it just knocked me off my feet. As a matter of fact, I was saying to everybody, when I went through my doctoral program, I said, the concepts we were talking about, the things that we did, sometimes they were so broad that it needed further discussion. And I said, this stuff is so deep. There needs to be further discussion. So after the meeting, after the training, why don't we just, first I told a friend of mine who was with me, let's just stay after and talk about this.
Right.
Because this stuff is more than what we think it is right now. And so we would meet and we'd talk, and another woman in there heard us talking, Amy Meyer Tholen, who's with the Arizona Human Services. And so she said, and she was the facilitator for the program. So she told everybody else that we were doing this, and they all said, no, we want to be a part of that too. So we all would stay behind after Dr. Perry would talk, and then we would process and go through and talk about what he was telling us and how he was sharing it with us so that we really understood. And every time I thought I understood what that man was talking about, the next time he come back and he said, well, we're going to talk about this. And I said to myself, he just talked about that.
We went deeper.
But he would go deeper. And I was like, whoa. I'm still going, whoa.
Right, I bet.
Yeah.
So what did you learn about trauma in the brain? The one thing that you still like shake your head and just sort of even hang your head on about what does trauma
Two
do?
things.
Okay.
How it comes in the body through your five senses. Okay.
Right.
It comes through the body only through your five senses. There's no other way you can experience it.
right.
Okay. And then the second thing is the importance of attachment and bonding.
So go further with that.
Okay. You know every organ in our body must be fully and completely developed in order for us to function correctly. Okay. Everything except the brain. The brain isn't. The brain does its most development after you're born. Okay. So yeah. So the structure is there, but all that wiring and circuitry that needs to happen
Ooh, wow.
happens after you're born. Okay.
And that's when trauma is entering it.
Yes.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Yes. So when something happens at an early age, it can rewire that circuitry so that you will not be able to process information the way you would have had that trauma not happened to you.
So, Dr. Dawson, I think when people hear trauma, especially my generation, I think when we hear trauma, we think like, you had to have something that happened to you horrific.
Yes.
But not necessarily.
Well, it all depends.
you
It all
know.
depends because typically trauma is something that happens to you that you can't stop. You can't prevent. You can't stop the person from doing what they're doing to you.
Okay.
Okay? You can't stop that accident from happening to you.
Right.
You can't stop that flood from flooding you out and flooding your whole community out. You can't stop that. Okay? So yeah, it is something that's tremendous that happens to you. But it's not just what happens to you. It's really how you process what's happened to you.
Okay,
And
okay.
when you've had those right attachment and connections early on, it makes a difference in how when something like that happens to you. So when someone abuses you and you go tell somebody about it, okay, that attachment you have to the person that you tell about it can actually help you get through that. But if that person that you need to tell about is the one who abused you, then that is who do you go to?
Right. So a person could experience trauma from being abandoned,
Absolutely.
Neglect?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah,
yes.
physical abuse.
Absolutely. All of those, yes. As a matter of fact, all of that can cause trauma to an individual. See, when trauma happens, trauma is and this is defined by Samsha, and it says that trauma is three things. It's an event that happens. It's an experience from that event, and then it's the effect of that experience. Okay? So I can say now that in America, we've all experienced trauma. You know why? COVID-19. That was something unexpected. Nobody knew it was coming. We couldn't stop it. Okay?
Right.
And it impacted everybody to
Right.
some
It's a
degree.
good example.
Okay?
Right,
So
right.
now there's COVID. Now the experience with COVID is different for all of us.
Absolutely.
For you, let's say for you and your family, it could have been really good because it caused you couldn't go anywhere. So your family and your husband, listen, I know how you and Ivan are together. I know, your boys. I know how, So that could have caused you all to even grow closer because you spent time with each other that you didn't have before. You already have a good relationship. You already things are looking everything is wonderful. So now, I got to spend more time with my
Right.
boo.
Well, look, yes.
I'm okay.
Right.
Okay, now I'm gonna cook. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do
Right.
that. Y'all can do stuff together. Okay. So that experience is one of bonding. Okay. And so the effect of it is you feel really healthy and joyful that because you bonded more. You feel good about that. Life is good. On the other hand, somebody else could have said that had that same COVID experience and they in that home together. But because they lost their jobs, see, your jobs kept going because you have careers, and they kept going. People who were working hourly didn't necessarily have that because their work is predicated on them working the hours so that owner can get paid and they can pay them. Well, if you're not in a position where you're getting paid, you're losing money. How are you going to eat? How are you going to pay your rent? How are you going to do anything? And it can cause you to start to feel isolated.
And people
Anger.
were. Yeah, and people were.
Yes.
Right.
And then as an outcome, now here you are, depressed
Okay.
because you can't get what you were, the life you were living, you can't live. So you're depressed.
So using that example, the second one where, and I love that you used COVID because, again, I think people put trauma on different, races and nationalities, and everyone experiences trauma.
It is because racism
it's
is a traumatic.
trauma.
Yes, it is.
But I don't think people outside of Black feel like that. Everybody has
You're
trauma.
right. Yeah, that's
Now,
what
ours
you want to say.
Right, they want to say, and we'll dig into ours is a little unique.
Yes, it is.
But I wanted to use COVID because I like that we kind of level set and said, okay, we've all experienced this.
Yeah.
So if someone who, like for instance, who their job was impacted, if their wires were connecting earlier on and then they experienced trauma, then they can go through that sort of process more of in a healthier way. Maybe not get depressed.
Yes.
But if the wires weren't because of early trauma.
Let me get back to that. Because I'm glad because in that attachment, we know that now that those first 2 months of life are the most critical. The ones outside the womb is most critical time in an infant's life.
Yes.
In a person's life.
Yes.
Okay. Why? That's when, before that child is born, there are some things that, they're getting things on demand. They are in a dark, secluded room, the uterus, okay? They are in is temperature control.
It's perfect.
Is got
safe, yeah.
Food on demand. I can go potty when I want.
Right.
I can do anything I need to do. Okay? I hear this rhythmic heartbeat. I hear the digestive. I hear all this stuff, which is music to my ears. I hear all this, okay? Now, if that's when I say a good home for that child, those are safe. That's a safe place for that child. But not all uteruses are good, safe uteruses.
No,
okay?
they're not. You're right.
Okay, but let's just stay on the safe one. It's good, and let's now add something to that. Let's say mother talks to the child throughout the day. You know how you talk to the boys when you were carrying them.
Singing, talking,
telling them things, okay? And then what happened that evening when you got home and you are relaxing now, you're sitting down and you're next to your husband. What did he do? He talked also to the baby. And he would tell the baby stuff. My husband would talk to our child when I was carrying him and talk and to the point when this boy was born. Okay. Now we have a blended family. We have yours, mine's, and ours. Okay. And when this boy was born, he had talked so much that he was crying and just screaming, crying. And my husband said, "Son, I'm right here." And I watched that head bob around.
Make its
to
way
get to the direction
right,
that voice was coming. And all he kept saying is, "Don't worry, I'm right here. I got you. I'm right here." And when he got to that voice, he calmed down. He went from screaming. They called him Shaky Jake. He was just screaming and shaking. And he said, "I'm right here." He calmed down and he said, "You know I'm right beside you. You know who I am." And he stopped crying. Now, you can go on YouTube and see fathers doing that.
Yes.
Okay, we didn't have them phones like we can do now.
Right.
But you see that now. And this, and yeah, it makes a difference. So now you've got this attachment so that this child inside now is outside, and now there's lights bright lights. There's clanging of stuff. It's scary out here. It's cold. So now you
And I'm hungry all the time.
and I'm hungry. Yeah, and so but you have all that. If when you get home, when that baby starts to cry, and you immediately go to it and you say, "All right, I'm right here. Yeah, and I know you're hungry, and I'm going to feed you right now," and you feed that baby. And then they cry again. "Oh, I see what you've done. You made a mess of yourself. That's okay. Mama's going to clean you right up." And you clean that baby up. And, "Oh, you crying again. You just want me to pick you up, don't you? All right, I'm going to pick you up." And you just respond to that baby when they cry. That makes the difference right there. Because that baby now says, when I cry, she comes.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody comes to me when I cry. Somebody comes and attends to me when I
respond to
cry.
me. Right,
Yes,
right.
yes. So, and that makes a difference. You call it's like being present, attentive, attuned, and responsive. You are present with the baby. You're attentive to what they're doing. You're attuned to their needs, and you respond to them. Okay? That's critical. When that doesn't happen, and let's say that child then, something happens to their parents, and they go into foster care. That child, for the most part, will be all right. They have a better chance of being okay because of those first 2 months.
Wow.
Okay?
Really?
Yeah. Now, if you've got a child who didn't have that attachment and wasn't bonded like that to begin with, and they go into foster care, they may have a more challenging time because that attachment, having someone address you and get to you early on is very critical in establishing a safe environment, understanding environment for you to move on through life. That's what it does. It makes a difference. And so, because when you think about it, Crystal, when you think about it, I look at this like, we have our basic human needs, okay? Our basic human needs are needs,
food,
water,
shelter, water.
Yes,
The hierarchy of needs.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You got that. We know, and people talk about that all the time. But what they miss are the fundamental human needs. There are some fundamental human needs.
What are they?
Connection, belonging, loving. That's why years ago after a war, there was, I forget which country, they were babies in there, and they were feeding these babies. They were healthy. They changed them. They gave them food, but they weren't connected.
Yes, I remember
and
that.
Those
Yes.
babies were dying.
Yes, I remember that. That
Because
was like
they're-
80s or something like
that.
that. I remember
yes.
that. Yes.
So now,
yes.
so now they know that. So now, that example came into America when we're looking at preemies. Preemies, they didn't have a good chance of living early on. Back in the 80s, they didn't have that good chance of living like they do now because they were their internal organs were underdeveloped. See, when you have underdeveloped organs, then that, the only one you can be underdeveloped, that brain, remember. But anyway, so there was this one doctor who told a nurse, this child, little girl, she was dying. And he told her, take her out she was in the incubator. He says, take her out and let her die with dignity. And the nurse took her out and held her in her arms and was, talking to her, singing to her, just helping her transition. And instead of that baby's heartbeat getting lower and lower, it started getting stronger and stronger. And they checked her out like, what is going on? So the doctor told the nurse to come in to do it again. And so she started doing the girl went home, she went home. And as far as I know, she's living a life fulfilled, she's doing well.
Right.
But they understand now the importance of
Touching.
belonging and touching and connecting.
Right.
So critical because really the connections you have in your life are a better predictor for your future life than the adversity you had in the back of your life, at the beginning of your life.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah.
Yes. And I can see that just in general. Personally, you can see it. You can see it in situations of others. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So why don't we know this?
See, that's it. This is new stuff. This neuroscience is new. When I say new, I know there are people who've been studying this like 30, 40, 50 years. But that's new science. This is new.
So is it people think it's too heavy to like wrap their head around?
They just never thought think about it. Who thought babies could hear you?
Right. Good
How
point.
many years ago they learned
Right,
that?
yes.
So that wasn't that long
Yes,
ago.
Right.
And just like they can hear the good stuff, they can hear the bad stuff too.
The
They hear the bad
tone,
stuff.
they sure
hear the tone. They hear all
yes,
that.
Yes, they do.
Just like whatever you eat, they eat. It's real. So that's why they would tell you, you have a good. And I remember my grandmother telling me, "Be sweet now." When I was pregnant, be sweet. When I was upset with my then husband, she be sweet.
She knew it impacted that baby.
She knew. I didn't know that, but she knew that. How did she know that? She experienced it. She
Yes.
saw some things
Right.
that I had not, in my 20s seen. So she would say, don't mark that baby.
Ah, yes.
Remember?
Don't mark. Don't mark that baby.
No,
Yeah.
the word was marked, but she said don't mock.
Yes, I know what you mean. Yes.
But we knew what they
Yes,
meant.
we did.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
So yeah.
Yeah, that's powerful. So trauma is real.
Trauma is
now it has a
real.
name.
Yes.
So I want us to transition into Black trauma. Like we talked a little bit about how small kids and the labeling and then just fighting and acting out.
yeah.
But they're acting the behavior is a response to some trauma.
Yes.
So how is this trauma showing up in the Black community? And are we all attached to it?
It's, Crystal, this trauma is in us. And it's our responsibility, although we didn't cause it to happen to us, but it's our responsibility to fix it, to change it, to do something about it. Okay? When you think about intergenerational trauma, there's intergenerational trauma, there's generational trauma, and then there's historical trauma. And just to cut to the chase, historical trauma really is like a combination of intergenerational and generational.
Okay.
Intergenerational is just passing down those tough experiences down through our families, through centuries.
So example of that.
Okay. Let's say in Africa, you were in your dwelling, and the head of the house, father, I think Baba, heard a noise outside. Okay, he went outside to check it out, and he never came back. Okay, don't know what happened to him. But he just all of a sudden he disappeared. So there gives a fear in this family, a terror in this family, of going out in the night. Something's happened. You disappear.
Yeah, right,
okay,
right.
And so now that impacts that family that stays there, but it also impacts that person who was taken. And so I call them the original Africans. They're the ones who really knew what freedom was like prior to being brought in enslavement over here. Okay, and so it's that stuff that they talk about that they experienced, and the horrific conditions that they had to come over here under. More of them died than arrived.
Right.
So you think about those conditions were when I say extreme,
Extreme. Beyond. We don't have words for it.
We can't even
We can't even imagine it. We can't even imagine it. Right.
How they
can't
suffered
imagine it.
coming
Right,
over here.
Right.
Okay. So and then get here and then to be
Again, suffering.
right, to be prodded and poked at and looked at and examined. People feeling and feeling your genitalia and have you bend over, even putting their fingers in your rectum, checking you out, checking you, like you're an animal.
Right. And we were to them.
That's
animals.
what we were.
We were
well,
registered
no,
as.
That's what people had to reduce us to in order to do what they did. They knew we were people, but they had to reduce us that. That's the structure. When you start talking about those structures set up, those structures were and systems were in place that People were
manipulate
people,
us.
and they caused us to not have to be identified as a human being, a full human being. So we were less than a full human being. But and they got us in different areas because of skill sets. We knew stuff that they didn't know. We could grow when they couldn't grow. We could carve and make things when they couldn't. So.
Yeah, so we have that intergenerational
Trauma, and then you got the generational trauma.
trauma.
And the generational trauma happens when people in the same group, like the 60s,
Okay.
experience stuff together.
Yes,
Okay?
that's good.
Civil rights movement.
Yeah,
That's generational stuff.
right.
And it just,
continues.
yeah. And so that stuff just folds down and keeps going over. And what happens is we have what's called conscientization, where you say one thing but do something different. When we say we're here to serve, like police, we're here to serve everybody equally. You say it, but what you actually do is something different. Okay? So with this trauma, we realize and understand that. We've known this for a long time. Didn't have a word for it, but we knew.
Right.
We're not treated like the rest of the people are treated.
So is it trauma anything like, you hear people say generational curses and those types of things. Do they relate at all?
So
Are they similar or no?
Well, I think because to me that now that's like spiritual stuff.
Okay.
So when you start talking about curses, people who are traumatized breed traumatizations in the next group.
And
so
others.
it's like
Okay.
if you were if you grew up thinking one thing and you did that, then you taught your family how to do that. Whether you taught them verbally or you taught them by actions, they learned how to do that. And
Like
most
spanking.
of us, exactly.
Like,
That was where I was going to go. Yeah. So
Okay.
whatever you were taught, that's
Okay.
what you did.
Right, we discipline and spanking. That's all you know.
That's right. That's all you know.
Right.
But what is spanking? How does spanking get you? The jail, the prison is full of people who were spanked. They didn't
Did
change.
nothing.
So what does spankings do for you? I was just talking last night in the class. I was teaching that to some young people how spankings don't work. And one person said, "Yeah, I think it does because sometimes they're good for you." And so we had a discussion about that because I thought, okay, does it make you stop doing what you did? No. Well, then it's not working.
Right.
What would work is having a conversation about your values and your morals. That's another thing that we have to really spend more time talking about.
Understanding what they are,
Yeah.
identifying them, and living up to them.
Why do we, why do we go to church?
Right.
Why? And I know my girls told me when they were young, well, I'll never go to church because we come here all the time, stay here all day. I don't want to go to church anymore.
I know.
But yet you can't keep them out
You
of
can't
it.
keep them out of it. I know it, right? I
There
get
they
it.
are.
Yep. I hear you. Yeah.
So it's like your values and your morals you teach through your actions more than what you say. People, when you hear the term "action speaks louder than words," it's true.
It's true. It's true.
true. It's
Oh yeah,
true.
it's true. That's a measure of of a person's character. I know. I just heard this. My son and my daughter-in-law were talking about integrity.
Yeah.
And my son golfs now, and Sierra, my daughter-in-law, said that she was listening to a podcast, and some guy said he measures integrity on how a person plays golf, if they cheat or not.
See?
And he said, and that's action.
It's action.
And if they cheat, he knows this person doesn't have integrity.
Doesn't have it.
And if they're honest about it, then he knows. That was sort of his measuring stick, which I thought, there's other ways, but
that's one.
that makes sense. That makes sense. So I love how you said that, okay, trauma's here, and it came different ways. You gave examples, generational, historical, intergenerational. Now it's here, showed up. We have a name, we've labeled it, and now we have some tools we've identified it, we know where it comes from. But but you mentioned it's our responsibility
Yes. Yes.
to
do something
to
about
do
it.
something about it.
Yeah,
What are some things we can do?
See, and that's a real good question too, because we try to hide it still. We have secrets that we carry.
Yes, ma'am.
And we don't want to talk about it because we've been told not to tell anybody. And even church hurt, that has issues that, that can cause you to think and feel and do some different things. But we have to learn how to take care of ourselves.
Yes.
Because if you don't love yourself, there's no way you can love anybody else. Now that right there, if you meet somebody and they start talking about they don't like who they are or whatever,
Run.
you better run, Forrest, run.
Right,
Get
run.
away
Yes,
from them,
yes.
because they will not treat you well. It will come back. And they will mistreat you because they don't know how to love themselves.
And I think that one can be tricky for some people, because back to your actions speak louder than words.
Yes.
It's sort of a cliche to say I love myself, and it's all about me, kind of a generation of feel going on, and people are saying self-love and self-care, but they're saying it, but are they actually
doing it? Yeah.
doing it?
Yeah.
Because it could play on you if you don't pay attention.
Yeah, you can.
If you don't know to look for the behavior.
If you're just listening to words, it can really mess you up, because loving yourself is an act of service to yourself. Is you taking care of yourself. Loving yourself makes you not just a better person, it makes you a better spouse. It makes you a better parent. It makes you a better friend. Just because you care about you. And that means that you're not going to let anybody call you out your name.
Right.
You're not going to let anybody, hit you. Because, see, we confuse love. Because, see, we've told our kids when we're praising them, we'll say things to them like this, Crystal. You did such a good job cleaning up your room. Girl, I just love you so much. Or, I'm only going to spank you because I love you.
So now like mixed messaging.
See?
Love
when
means
we
spanking.
send these-
Mixed messaging. Yes.
That means
Yes.
in order for you to love me, you got to hit me.
Or I got to
In
clean my
order
room.
you got to love me, I got to do something.
Right.
See, love is complete by
Unconditional.
itself. You don't need nothing else to go with it. That's why if you can't love you, you can't love anybody else. That's why if you can't take care of you, you can't take care of anybody else.
You know how on the plane and they do the instructions?
Oh, that's a good
Yes,
one. That's
and
a
they
good
always
one.
say,
Yes.
put your mask on first, your oxygen,
Uh-huh.
and get yourself together. Then your kids or your spouse or whoever you're
Whomever
helping,
else you helping,
whoever
you can
you're
get them.
helping,
Yeah.
and don't do them. And every time, and I actually probably one of the few people I actually listen. I listen what the flight attendants have to say, because they may say something different, and I want to know, right? Something goes down, I want to be able to take care of myself.
Exactly.
But they always do that, and I always to myself it reminds me the importance of me. Like I come first,
Yes.
and that could be a new message for people.
It is.
That's probably another podcast.
That's another one right there.
Right.
Because I'll tell you this. I heard that message when I was the first time. I didn't ride an airplane until I was like, I don't know, 23, 20, no, 25, 26. My first time riding on the airplane, okay? And when they said that, I was sitting in the row by myself, okay? Because then the planes weren't always full like they packed like they are now. But anyway, I was sitting there with my legs curled up. At that point, I could get my feet in the seat, and I could curl up, with my feet in the seat. And she said, put your mask on first. And I said to myself, if my child were with me, I make sure they get their mask on first. Then I'll put mine on. See, I didn't understand then because I didn't know. This thing about self-love has evolved. But when you know better, you do better.
Yes, right.
So when thank you, Maya Angelou.
Right,
but, but I would say that on my way to where I was going and my way coming back. Until one time I was going on a plane and a woman had a baby in her lap, an infant. And the flight attendant making this comment, and I've learned some things by now, and this wasn't all, so you learn, And I started to think, what if the plane dropped just when she was putting that mask on the baby and she passed out? I was just looking and thinking. I said,
Came to
now,
light for you.
Yeah, and I said, and now the baby can't help her. So, and what if she, because she didn't do that, what if she dies? The baby's still here. He's got a mask on his face. But if she took care of herself first, okay, the likelihood of her passing out decreases very low. And now, if the baby even passed out, she can revive him, put the mask on that child, and they'll be okay.
And that's just beautifully said in terms of the community.
Yes.
If we take care of ourselves, then I'm able to assist you when you have a need.
See, now you started something else.
Okay,
There's
I know,
something.
right?
There's something now called collective healing. That and collective. When you're doing something and you come back and you help heal the whole community. That's the collective. All of us now can get healed. So when there's a flood that erases everything, destroys my house, and the community comes back and they rebuild me a house. Okay.
Right.
We all, because I get because of that.
Right.
We all start to heal.
right.
We get through this.
So good.
Yes.
I could talk about this all day. I know. I just love that. So, if nothing else, we have to make sure that we really do the work to love ourselves.
Yeah.
Like really do that work. Everyone's work is different, but make sure that's done and check in on yourself and make sure you're doing that so that we are in position to really deal with trauma. So the book, let's talk about the book before we wrap up. So I love this book. It's beautiful cover.
Thank you.
I mean, and he's handsome. I mean, this is a beautiful cover.
Thank you. And that cover came about, it was really interesting because I just wanted the face of a person on the cover with no affect, as you see, he has no affect. And my co-author, Dr. Damon Holt, he wanted the picture of a brain. We're talking about the brain, so we got to have the brain on here. So anyway, the designer said, "Let me think about it," and he came back and he put them both together.
Beautiful.
So and we both went, "That's it."
Yeah, this is gorgeous. This is already out.
Yes, it is.
You know what? So I don't know if you know this, but on Amazon, your rating is a 4.6 out of 5. That's amazing.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
That's great. I didn't know that.
That is amazing.
I didn't
Yes.
know
So
that.
you already got reviews on it.
Yes.
A person could literally go to Amazon and buy this. It's a must read. What a good family read.
Yes, it is.
You know what I mean?
Yes,
to
it
read
is.
and
Yes,
talk
it is.
about,
Yes, it
talk
is.
about trauma and the family. Maybe I could, that's something that my family could be interested in. We like to talk and debate.
This is
would
something
be
that was
amazing.
It's healing, and it helps people understand what's going on. Because now when you see people and they're talking to you, like I tell people, don't run to that bedroom before you've had some real deep conversation because you don't know what they're carrying.
What kind of trauma?
You have no idea. They might be
That's the
cute
truth,
and all,
right.
but you gotta wait.
Oftentimes it shows up real cute, don't it?
It shows, and so
Right, yeah.
and so now you got that trauma, and you make a little traumatized critter for individual.
Yes, that's so true.
So you gotta,
Yes, this is beautiful. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
I remember you telling me about this book and when you were
Yes,
writing it, and I was
yes,
excited. And,
yes.
and I'm just so proud of you and proud that I know that
Thank
you,
you.
again, another example for me. Like I'm always gleaming from, you say you're going to do something, you do it and you stick to it. And this is what you were talking about,
That's
Black
it.
trauma. And you've already, I know, had conversations in different areas about this. And I know,
and more to come.
Yes, and definitely,
Yeah.
and this is something that I think what I love about this is Black trauma, but I think anyone of African descent could really glean from this. So
That's why it's called Black trauma.
Right. Brazil, this can happen
exactly.
this can happen
That's
in,
right. Yeah,
our
anywhere.
homeland, our country, Africa.
In
Any
every-
person can really take this, and even outside of culture, you can still have a better understanding because that's where empathy comes from, is the understanding of
Exactly.
others. So.
But Chris, to your point, that's why we called it Black trauma, not African American trauma.
Right. Black, because we're black. All
because
over.
it's all over.
All over.
Absolutely.
Yes, definitely. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of your crystal clear moments. And I love how you broke this down and you educated us. And again, Amazon, you go on, it's easy to order. Already got ratings on it. I mean, I bless you that you just continue to just let this heal others. And thank you for your pearls of wisdom. And I love you. Thank you.
Thank you so
You bet.
much.
Thank you so much. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.